So first, the streets of Sheffield are home to 36,000 trees. Lime trees, elm, plane, cherry trees all line the roads of the city in South Yorkshire. But plans to cut down vast numbers of them as part of a road maintenance contract have caused growing protests. A Freedom of Information request recently revealed that Sheffield Council's deal with the contractor Amy contains a target to replace 17,500 trees over 25 years, which is almost half the city's street trees, an enormous number. Two of Sheffield's MPs are now calling for a pause in the felling. The council, which is planting new trees, insists that the trees earmarked for felling are either, they say, dangerous, dead, diseased, dying, damaging or discriminatory. Those last two basically mean the roots are pushing up the pavement or the road. The council also says many residents support the work to improve Sheffield's streets. Campaigners disagreed. They say many of the trees could and should be saved. They want amendments made to pavements and roads instead. A network of protesters now keeps an eye out for the felling teams so they can take rapid action. That can include hugging the trees, even something called geckoing, which prevents tree fellers from putting up safety barriers. It's pretty exhausting work for both sides, this, and we're going to find out more about what's happening in a moment. But first, let's get the background from Liz Roberts, political editor for BBC Radio Sheffield. Wow, this is such a big issue.
Yeah, we've been talking about it for years and seemingly every week, Jeremy. It just never, ever goes away, this problem.
And it seems as if, from the campaigners' side, it is just they are just simply cutting down too many trees. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's right. And, well, not just that. I think they feel like there's been a lack of consultation on the issue. That they, I think the feeling really is that it's this PFI contract that this comes about because of has meant that really local people haven't been involved in the decision making as much as they would have liked to have been. And although it's always been there in sort of black and white-ish how many trees might be affected, we didn't know which ones it was going to be, and it was only when they started turning up with chainsaws that people said, hang on a minute, I like my street trees and I like this tree at the end of my road and I don't want it to go. What are you going to do about it? And
today there's a bit of a moment because Jarvis Cocker's in town, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, he's putting on a gig this evening. He's doing some DJing with some of his mates. So there's Jarvis Cocker, there's Richard Hawley, the Everly pregnant brothers are always popular in Sheffield, and he's just trying to draw attention to the issue. I think not that a lot of attention hasn't already been drawn to it. And he says whatever money they raise, a lot of people have been arrested over this, and they are facing court costs. And he said whatever they raise, they will try and help out with those court costs where they can.
So it's 17,500 trees being cut down and replaced. Seems like an awfully big number, an enormous amount of work. And you're trying to work out, are all those trees really getting in the way of traffic?
Well, that number is disputed, of course. This all came about because of an FOI request that was put in, that went to the Information Commissioner, and he insisted that parts of the contract that had previously been redacted were made public. So just in the last few days, what the protesters have always said is that there is a target. We know there's a target and it's higher than the council are saying. And it appears in the contract that is the case. And it does mention 17,500 highway trees. That is about half of the 36,000 in Sheffield. It's still a very small percentage of the overall number of trees in Sheffield. We're talking specifically about the ones along the sides of the road here. But there is a dispute going on about whether that is a target. The council says it isn't. It's only there as an up to figure, a maybe figure, if we need to figure, whereas the campaigners are saying no, but it doesn't say that in the contract. It doesn't say up to. It clearly says 17,500 trees.
And I guess there's a bit of police exhaustion here as well, is there? Because poor old police have to step in when there's argy-bargy.
It has been quite extraordinary in the last few weeks, I must say, and that is why local MPs have now been getting involved, including Louise Haigh, who's the Shadow Policing Minister. And just a couple of weeks ago, our Police and Crime Commissioner, Alan Billings, went down to one of the sites. Good grief, what a difficult morning that was for him on all sides, because, there are maybe a couple of people who are getting inside these barriers, who are then stopping the work from happening. And yeah, there's a lot of shouting and chanting and that kind of thing, but there's also a lot of people just standing around. And, you know, they're saying, look, this is intimidating. You've got 30 plus police officers, plus then maybe 20 or so private security that are hired by Amy, the contractors who are part of this PFI, to do the work. That's a lot of high vis, Jeremy, I can tell you. And it does seem, you know, when you're faced with that it is quite intimidating when all you're saying is, please don't cut down my tree. That's what the protesters say.
Thank you very much, Liz Roberts, political editor for BBC Radio Sheffield. So let's speak to Paul Brook, self-employed craftsman, tree protester, and Cllr Bryan Lodge, who says lots of people support the work to basically sort out Sheffield's roads. Paul Brook, first of all, I gather you're on Meersbrook Park Road, is that right?
Yes, I am, Jeremy. Thanks for having me on and thanks for covering the story.
Sure. Well, you are there because you think a felling team is about to arrive.
Yeah, as we've done for most mornings for months now, a group of us living on this road and on roads all around Sheffield will stand on street corners wondering whether the tree fellers are going to turn up to our road.
And what is wrong with the trees on Meersbrook Park Road?
Well, I suppose that's a source of contention. The council want to fell 18 out of 43 trees, so nearly half the trees on our road. The independent tree panel, which was an independent panel of experts the council set up, said every single one of the trees on this road is healthy, and they're all listed for felling because of damage to curbs or pavement. So that's the reason. That's the reason they want to fell the trees. They're all healthy lime trees in an avenue.
So I missed a little bit of what the independent panel said because the line went. Did you say that they say the trees are healthy, but they're being felled because they're getting in the way of the road and the pavements? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Then can't you, if you look at that, you can see why they're taking them down, right?
Well, if I actually look at that and also read the recommendations from the independent tree panel, this was something the council set up, they said actually they don't need to fell 18 of these trees. 8 of them are perfectly fine and engineering solutions we've already paid for in the contract could be used to save the trees. And the council overrode their own independent tree panel that they paid £250,000 for and decided that the trees should still be felled. When you look at the trees, there's nothing wrong with the pavements or the road that can't easily be fixed. In any other city, you'd just work around it.
OK, stay there, Paul. We've got Cllr Bryan Lodge, Labour councillor, and you could tell us why the council is ploughing ahead with so much opposition.
Can I just correct something that was said in the build-up to this, and you were saying earlier? It's not half the trees in Sheffield. There are 4.5 million trees in Sheffield. We're talking about highway trees where there are 36,000 on the highway.
That's what I said. The streets... Hang on. You're not correcting anything with respect. The streets...
No, it was earlier on. I heard you talking about half the trees in Sheffield.
36,000 trees on the streets, we said, yeah.
Yeah, I know earlier on when you were talking in the lead-up on the earlier show, it was talking about half the trees in Sheffield to come down. But no, we are doing work that's out there on the highway. For many years, Sheffield was branded as Pothole City because there'd been underinvestment in highway maintenance. We recognise this. This is what the people of Sheffield wanted to do, and we were offered the opportunity to bid for funding from the government, and we've been granted £1.2 billion of funding from the government to bring the highway network in Sheffield back up to an acceptable standard. And this is work that's going on to replace the street lighting we've done. We're doing the highways, the footpaths, and we're doing this work across the city. And so far, for the 6,000 or so trees that were identified in the original core investment period, we've done about 5,500 of these trees in the last 4 or 5 years.
Done in the sense of cut down?
Replace. We've identified trees that need replacing because they're either dead, dying, damaging property, third-party property, or the highway or the footpath, the disease, or we have another one that it's to aid understanding, it's classed as discriminatory. So where it's making it difficult for people to, with mobility problems or pushchairs and things like that, scooters and things, getting down the pavements because the uneven surface or it's causing people to step out into the roadway to get round.
OK, that's explained something because I wondered what discriminatory meant in that context. Thank you. Paul Brook, there we are. That's the explanation. Paul, you haven't gone, have you? Oh, my goodness, the protester has gone, and this is the moment we do the Sheffield tree story, and he's not there. Unbelievable. OK, so it's down to me then. Cllr Bryan Lodge, the overriding thought here is that cars are more important than trees, right?
No, that's not the case at all. What we're doing work across the whole network. We're replacing where the trees are damaging the footpaths, where they're damaging the roots are going out into the displacing curbs, going into the carriageway, making it dangerous for people walking around, making it dangerous for cyclists.
Isn't that what trees do? Isn't that what nature does? Don't we leave it? I mean, why do we have to kill nature?
We're not just killing nature. We're looking at things where we have a responsibility and duty. Is it not right that people are able to get around and walk around the city or travel around the city? You know, if they've got mobility issues, should they have to step out into the road because there are trees that are narrowing the pavement or making it where they can't travel?
Well, you've picked the hardest example there, haven't you? Which is somebody in a wheelchair, let's say, who can't get around a tree.
Well,
I can't believe that's the argument. I can't believe that's the argument for cutting down 17,000 of them.
We're not cutting down 17,000, so that's not the situation. There is provision within the contract to cover for up to 17,000 trees if that's needed. So if there was a serious disease that struck the trees, it's insurance covered, if you like, that allows the council to replace trees without additional cost to them. What we've said all along, we've been quite clear from the start. We said around 6,000 trees for the core investment period, and we lose on average around 200 trees a year through dying, through disease, through vehicle strikes, through severe weather, being blown over. And so if you multiply that out, that comes out as a total of around 10,000 trees. And that's what we are saying. There is no target to replace trees. And no matter what we say to try and dispel this, it's something that's just thrown out again and again.
We've got the protester back, so let me bring in Paul Brook. Sorry, it's probably our fault. Okay. Paul, respond to that, please, if you can.
Hi. Yeah, what I would say is Council Lodge just said they've always said 6,000 trees in the core investment period. That's completely false. They haven't always said it. They started saying it in a press release at the beginning of last year. They've consistently hidden the number of trees. And as far as saying 17,500 isn't a target, you only have to read the wording in the contract. It clearly specifies that the contractor must, unless they have authority approval to deviate from the policy. I'd ask Bryan Lodge to publish a couple of things that they're still keeping redacted: the highway tree replacement policy and the annual tree management programme.
But Paul, that's fine, but speaking right now on the radio, can you explain why you wouldn't cut down a tree that stops somebody in a wheelchair getting down the pavement?
Right, sorry, I was missing part of that conversation. Just to be absolutely clear, myself and the other campaigners as part of Sheffield Tree Action Group have never prevented the felling of a tree that is listed on their list as discriminatory and preventing wheelchair access. We have never prevented such a tree from being felled, and Councillor Lodge that knows that all too well.
Well, what about if it's causing a pothole in the road?
If it's causing a pothole in a road and the engineering solution that we've already paid for is available to be fixed, then we say the tree should stay.
Oh, you just repair the pothole then?
Yeah, absolutely, just fix the road.
But then it just goes again a year later.
No, that's not the case. Just look around London, where BBC's based. Look at the trees and look at the size of the trees that you've got there. And people manage to sort out the roads and the pavements in cities up and down the country. I mean, let's talk about the tree that they're felling at the moment. Up in Crooks, they're gathered around. There's a samba band and a protest going on because they're trying to fell a tree on Sackville Road. That tree, their own independent tree panel said all it needed was you to take out the old curb and put in what they call a half-width curb. The council said no, they won't do that, even though their own independent experts said just fix the pavement.
Okay.
And they're now felling that tree. Ask Councillor Lodge why they haven't respected the decisions of their own independent panel.
All right, fantastic. Thank you both very much indeed. Paul Brook, who's against this tree felling, and the councillor sticking up for the council, of course, there.